I think a lot of them are legitimate, and a lot of them are fanciful, imagination, and outright liars, of course. But I think perhaps half of them are real sightings. If 1% is correct, that's enough. That means somewhere between 5 and 8 people saw it. And if one person saw it, and if it's really true, well, that proves the animal. Now, I estimate that there may be something like 10 times as many people who have seen them than have been reported. So the number of sightings actually numbers in the thousands, probably.
Well, I'd been hunting up out of Spokane, and we hadn't got anything, so we stopped at one more spot to check it. Just as I got into the head of the canyon, I happened to glance back to one side, and there this thing was. And so when I started to turn, well, it turned and walked away from me, and got into the brush real quick, and I thought then that it was a bear up on its hind legs that had maybe had a trap on a front foot or something and had run on its hind legs. So then of course I took right in after it, and I went down the canyon a little ways, and I come to another opening, and this thing was standing right out in the opening, like it was waiting for me or something. And when I come busting out into this opening, he just standing there looking at me, and I seen then that it wasn't a bear, and because it was tall, maybe 7 foot, had hair all over it, was like a man. It didn't look like an ape, it looked more like a man, you know. It didn't have the real short legs like an ape, and it walked upright, swung its arms when it walked, and you know, it was just too human to be an ape or a gorilla or something like this, but still, it wasn't a man, you know, and we just didn't know what the heck it was.
And we had just done some explosions at a second site, approximately as far away as that corner you see down there, about 400 meters or so away. And we had set some charges at the current site and had gotten in our vehicles and were heading down the road in a convoy when I happened to glance down at the second blast site. And standing out in the open, in the middle of this rock quarry, as it was, were these 3 jet black, very large creatures. When I first saw these creatures, my mind refused to accept that I was seeing what I was. In a matter of 4 to 5 seconds, perhaps, I tried to explain it away as deer, elk, possibly 3 bears, but I was left to believe after a few short seconds that I was seeing these big feet that people have been talking about for years. After about 25 to 30 seconds of viewing them, I lost sight of them as we drove into the tree line. If somebody would have asked me prior to this sighting whether or not I actually believed that these creatures existed, I probably would have responded, I'm open enough minded to believe that they exist, but I'd have to lump it right there with UFOs and the like, that I would have to actually see one to believe it. Today I can say, not only do I believe they exist, I know they do. I have seen them.
I happened to glance over my shoulder, and I saw something come out of the trees and stand on the road for a second and look directly at me, and I felt very nervous at the time, and it continued walking all the way up and up the ravine, up the hill. It was very tall, and it continued to stand on its 2 feet, and it walked through the whole distance on its 2 feet, and it was very easy gait. It was just like a normal walk.
So it reminded you of a human, did it, or?
Well, that type of thing, it wasn't stiff-legged or anything. It just did a normal walk, and it looked at me like it had been looking at something, and just kept walking.
So how do you feel now going into the woods?
I don't go alone.
So it really did put a fright into you?
Yeah, it did.
I don't know why, but I just couldn't get to sleep. I felt cold. It was in the middle of June, so it couldn't have been too cold out. But anyway, I finally started to doze off, and then some rocks probably around this size here come rolling down the cliff, something like that. And that's what woke me up. So I stood straight up in the sleeping bag and I grabbed my shotgun, which was quite close, and my light. And I shone it up there, and the beam of the light hit the creature right in the face. So I grabbed the light and the handle of the gun, and I shot at the creature several times, and it seemed to back off. And dust would fly off his chest when the shot hit him. It acted as if I would come up and to shove you.
Just oomph type.
Yeah, just the pressure of the shot hitting seemed to shove him back some, but it had no real effect on him.
How do you describe what you saw standing on the top of that cliff?
Very awesome. Just huge and enormous and very ugly.
How big in the sense of the chest size or the arms and so on?
I would say his arms were as big around as my legs probably, and probably about 3.5, 4 feet across here. Very large.
And how tall?
Anywhere from 7 to 8 feet.
Will anybody ever convince you that what you saw didn't exist?
No, I'm afraid not. No, I know what I saw, and I do not suffer from hallucinations.
Well, it all began for me in March of 1957 when I was hunting in Mason County, Washington. I saw a creature there, came face to face with it. The most man-like looking gorilla I'd ever seen. This is how I described it, because I didn't know. I'd never heard of Bigfoot, never heard of Sasquatch, or the Omaha, or the Yeti. I had never heard of any of that. And all of a sudden, I came face to face with this creature, about 40 yards away, I guess he was. And he had the most knowing look on his face. His eyes. I remember the eyes, I think, more than anything else. And then I discovered, much to my surprise and shock and dismay, when I tried to report it, it was treated as though it was a hoax, as if it were a joke. This creature does exist. It's here. It's all around us. We can learn from it. And yet modern science has turned its back on it. They don't want to know about it. Now, that makes me madder than hell.
Wait, what does the thing look like?
It was an ape-like creature. It didn't walk on all fours. It was stooped over. When it stood up, it didn't stand up erect. It was still stooped over. And I walked off into the woods, and it didn't make a lot of noise.
Was it very big, very muscular?
Yes, pretty muscular. The hair on it, I'd say, was about 2.5, 3 inches. And it wasn't a dark like a bear. It was tannish color.
And it didn't make any noises?
No, it didn't. It just observed, and the reflection from his eyes were yellow. And it just, it knew I was coming when I got up to it and just turned and walked off.
My wife and I were camping up in the mountains, and we drove into a lake called Todd Lake up in the Cascade Mountains, which is about a quarter of a mile across. We drove in there and got out of the car and started looking around for a place to camp. It had been raining, so we were trying to find a dry place. Well, while we were looking, it started to rain again. So the storm being a thunderstorm, we thought it would be over soon. We got back in the car to wait it out. We sat there in the car looking through the rain-covered windshield out across the lake. Across the lake in a meadow was a tall figure. We saw that and we couldn't believe our eyes. So to see better, we got out of the car to look at it directly. And this figure appeared to be about between 8 and 11 feet tall, standing across the lake. We thought it might be an elk standing head-on, but there were no horns. But in getting out of the car and closing the door, he probably heard us, because he started striding over to the edge of the meadow into the trees. And when he turned and strode across there was no question. It was not an elk. It was an extremely tall giant. His legs seemed to be long for the size of his body, even though he was tall. Giant strides. As soon as he reached the edge of the clearing into the trees, we were just petrified, because we thought he might circle around and come over toward us. We jumped in the car and tried to start the engine. I flooded the engine. It wouldn't start, and we finally got it going, and we drove out of there, just feeling completely scared. Never been so scared in my life.
But this thing was on its hind legs. It didn't walk on all fours. It walked straight across the line. It was a good distance away, probably a good half a mile. I kept going. I was still unlocking the legs of the tripod. I looked up, and this thing was reaching up to touch this. I thought, well, maybe it was a trapper, but it was too big to be a trapper. Early fall like that, trappers don't wear heavy coats, or what looked like a fur coat at the time. So I knew it wasn't a trapper, otherwise he would have taken the axe. And I knew it wasn't a bear because they don't walk on two legs. So I don't know what it is I actually saw. I just put it down to experience, as I said. I told some friends about it, they laughed. And I said, well, maybe it was a Sasquatch. So I'm not quite sure what it was.
As Lonnie and us was approaching this curve in my Volkswagen sedan, Lonnie was sitting in the seat behind me when he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, look at there. And I looked over here in this ditch line quickly. We wasn't doing probably about 35 miles an hour, and we seen what we thought was a bear. Upon raising up and the Volkswagen setting low like it was, and being on the lookout for any cattle or what on the road, we seen quickly what looked like a bear. But just as we was right dead on it, out of the corner of my low windshield, the thing raised up and looked right directly at us. We have since found that through many years there seems to be a crossing for this being, whatever it is, here in this area at certain times of the year.
Well, I took off in the morning up in the hills for picking huckleberries. This place that we're going to is a place they call the 6 Mile Lemon Pass. Picked for a while, and as I turned around, saw a creature standing there looking at me. I thought at first it was a grizzly or a bear, but then I looked a little closer and I found out that it looked more like a human being. I'd say between 7-9 feet tall, probably weighing 500 or 600 pounds. It had nails on its fingers, and the hair on it is kind of a steel grayish color. So when he stood there and looked at me, I didn't tarry too long. I took off in a hurry down to the car, and well, that's the last I saw of him.
Now let's listen to Mr. Ostman's experience.
Well, there was 4 of them, and none of them look alike. There was what I call the old man, because I had no scale or any rules for measurement, but he was at least 8 feet tall, and must have weighed at least 800 pounds. But the what I call the old lady, she couldn't have been over about 600-700 pounds. She was probably 7 feet tall, and they were all covered with hair.
Situations up here where you've seen or heard something unusual.
Yeah, well, what are the chances of, if I came up here one night, seeing some signs or evidence?
Waste your time. That's where a lot of people are messing up. You've got to be here like a week or 2, something like that. Let them know you're here.
I mean, have you seen them just around here?
Yeah, something caught my eye right in the middle of the road there. So I stopped right here, and I kicked the flashlight on, and I saw something turn and go like this. And I was looking at it for a minute going, because I couldn't see no eyes or nothing like that. Looked down a minute, looked back up, and went, that's Bigfoot. And he was like 6'6", real broad. And no, he does not walk all hunched over like the Hollywood Neanderthal. And I turned the flashlight off, he was gone. But the next morning, to show that I had acted with couth and etiquette. That piece of bark was left laying there.
And he left that?
They come back down that night. I heard him come down, but I just didn't open the door.
How come you don't take a picture of him, Howard?
Because if I take a picture of him and then, you know, someone goes, well, yeah, there's Bigfoot right here, I'm going to have every Bubba redneck in the woods up here with a gun to be the first one to kill a Bigfoot.
Howard, why do you think he left that piece of bark there?
As a thank you. Because obviously this is one of their cut areas. This is one of their trails. And I didn't bother the kids. I took the light off him so he could go on his way. And when they come back down, I kept the dog in the trailer. So they didn't have to worry about, you know, anything going wrong.
Mm-hmm. So you think that for some reason they value bark enough to give it to you as a gift?
No, what it was, okay, like the early Indians, you know, in the Old West, when they was traveling a trail, the deal was when you come to a crossroad, you stop and you put a rock down. All that rock meant was, hi, I'm a human, I'm alive, and I crossed here. Thank you.
And you told me rather, I found intriguing story about what happened to you when you were a child. And I wonder if you'd recount that for me on your first encounter.
Well, there was two of them. A big one that was fairly heavy with child, young, whatever. And a young one stood there and looked at me for a while, and then they come down to the creek, got a drink, and then they left. Anyway, they come back about every week. And got so I'd take them down some venison sausage Daddy made. And they'd eat it, and they'd throw sticks and rocks and stuff, play catch with it.
With who? With you?
The young one, yeah.
He wouldn't throw at you, would he?
No, just to me. Very gentle. Underhand type motion. Very, very gentle.
Did you ever throw it back to him?
Uh-huh.
And then what would he do?
Pick it up and throw it back to me again.
And how long would this go?
A couple hours, like playing catch with it. The female, it had its baby not too terribly far from me. It's like, about 25, 30 yards, I imagine.
Was that in a cave, or was it
No,
out
it was it was by the creek, by the stump, behind the stump.
Behind the stump. Did the creature make any sound?
Well, no more so than anything else would, giving birth to a young one. It hurts.
And then what did the creature do?
Well, it wouldn't let me near it at all, near the little one.
Mm-hmm.
And she cleaned it off and picked it up with this way, held it next to her, real close to her.
Do you think that these creatures are animals?
No, they are not. They're human.
In 1967, the 20th of October, myself and Bob Gimlin were going into Northern California area. It's in the Humboldt County there. And this is about 40 miles back in the wilderness. The nearest little settlement is a town called Orleans. There's approximately 17,000 square miles in there that are unmapped. And it's a very primitive area, very rugged area. We had been in this area trying to find evidence of the giant creatures called Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And we had been in there about a week and a half. We were camped on the Bluff Creek there. This particular day we had started up Bluff Creek and had gotten about 4 miles or so from our camp. And we had started to come around a bend. I was riding this little horse here. His name's Peanuts. And he shied and jumped backwards and reared up. And as he did, I tried to pull him down, and as I did so, I pulled too hard and we both fell to the ground. I was able to get up, and as I held the horse by the reins and come around him, I then looked over to my left, and I seen this creature, and it was standing by the creek there about 120 feet away from us. And then it started moving away from us, walked up the bank and turned around, looked at us again, and I was able to get into my saddlebags and get my camera out and start shooting pictures. I yelled at Bob to cover me in case the creature did turn and attack us. At this point, when I was able to start getting pictures, she had walked up the bank and was going on across this sandbar. Well, I ran directly at kind of a 3/4 from towards her, actually, and run across the creek. I was able to come up on the other side, and I got some fairly good pictures. The creature was massive. I would say that it was 7 to 7.5 feet tall and probably 350 to 500 pounds. It was taking an average of 43-inch stride walking, and they measured 14.5 inches long, each print, and 5.5 inches wide. Bob Gimlin had seen this thing much better than I did because he was looking at it directly and I was trying to look through a camera. However, I could see it plain enough, and it was quite a great moment for me.
I'm in the woods quite a bit and hike a lot of mountain trails, and there are lots of animals that I know exist there that I don't see. And because of the nature of the subject itself, some people who do know something about it will not come forth and talk. I would think that because we don't see Bigfoot does not in itself mean that he isn't there.